What movie had the worst ending that you didn't expect? The Devil Inside. The movie was basic horror, everyone dies fair, but it suddenly ends after a car crash and a title card appears listing a website for more info and the movie just ends. Seriously, one of the worst endings imaginable. I remember watching it for the first time when my friend rented it. I took one look at the box cover of The Blind Nun and said, I bet that nun isn't even a main character in the movie. I bet she's just some background character we only see once. Funnily enough, I was right. Because I predicted it would be a horrible movie, and I've noticed a trend wherein when a horror movie is really bad, the box art usually features something that has little or nothing to do with the actual plot. I've never seen an entire theater collectively groan and still haven't since I saw that. And the biggest kick in the teeth? The website is fucking invalid now. Fucking maybe one of the biggest farces I've ever witnessed. The website is fucking invalid now. This is the most Windows XP thing I've read about a movie for a whole while. When I was maybe 8, my aunt took me to see The Boy in the Striped Pajamas in theaters, not realizing at all what it would be about. She didn't read the book, so to her it seemed like a heartwarming story about companionship between two boys and thought the fact that it was PG-13 would be okay. Most of the movie was fine. I didn't know what the Holocaust was, but I kinda got the drift. It wasn't until they got into the gas chamber at the end that my child self started bawling BC. I knew they probably died. It was the first non-happy ending I ever saw, and it took me a little while to reconcile what had happened and the fact that some events are just cruel. TBH, the movie is even sadder than the book. In the book, Bruno's family doesn't know what happens to him until years later when his father pieces it all together. In the movie they all know exactly what's happening and you have to watch their reactions to it. I agree. Also, books in general are more likely to have sad endings, whereas when watching a film like that it sets it all up for the cliché save at the last minute. And then he dies anyway. Back in high school, I took AP US History. At the end of the year, we had a week or so after our standardized tests, so we were just watching movies in class. Everyone voted on The Boy in the Striped Pajamas one day, and I'd heard of the movie, but I didn't know shit about it. I didn't even know it was about the Holocaust until it started. So we hit the end of the movie and I'm just sitting there staring at the screen trying to figure out what I just watched. All my friends were confused how I was confused because all of them had seen the movie, and I was like, who votes to watch this a second time? We watched this in history, and I had to step out for probably most of it because we'd just done a WW2 unit and I put 2 and 2 together. Oh yikes. Yeah, ours was after everything, so we were into modern stuff and so I knew nothing about it. We'd watched Mulan and stuff, so I didn't think anything of it when people suggested it, but after I was baffled. Frozen. And I don't mean the Disney movie. I mean the one about the skiers stuck on the ski lift. My dad and I always joke about this movie when we go skiing, despite neither of us having seen it. We'll always warn each other of the ski wolves. Percy Jackson. Any of them. Honestly, they're completely bad. I'd rather pull out all of my teeth than watch that movie. Rick Riordan, author of PJ. I'm pretty sure he straight up asked them to stop making Percy Jackson movies. Also a repeat of Aragon then? Aragon's author downright refused to sell them the rights to the second book for a movie, LOL. I think Aragon and the Golden Compass were wrecked worse than Percy Jackson, but I read those two right before the movie, where with PJ I was almost done with the series when the movie hit. Never saw the second movie though. I do remember me and my friends in the theaters watching the first trailer for PJ, and my friend yelled "Grover's black" when she realized who they cast for him. She was mortified by her outburst. Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials. Spoilers obvi: when Teresa betrayed Thomas at the end I felt so bad for him. It's all fine at the end though. Still hurt me from the inside. I honestly hated Teresa throughout the entirety of the second and third book. Her death didn't make me sad at all. Oh yeah, I was cheering for that one. Now, Newt's death on the other hand. Newt's death in the book made me cry. Hancock started out really interesting, but the second half seemed completely random and separated from the first. Apparently, it was 3 scripts and directors jammed together. It's actually a pretty interesting story. The movie just kept getting twisted and passed from director to director while being more and more peakified. I believe the UG script is Vince Gilligan's, Breaking Bad creator, and any time Hancock had sex with a girl they would die from his sperm shotgunning out of him. Bridge to Terabithia. Thought it was going to be a fantasy film, then discovered just their imaginations. Then the ending happened. I heard parents were pissed because they took their kids to see a light-hearted movie. The book destroyed me as a kid. I was supposed to read it for a 4th grade book report. I didn't. When talking about the book, I was asked what I liked most about it, and scrambling for an answer said the ending. One of the girls in my class cried. I guess at that point you might have to admit you didn't read it. Man in the High Castle. Whole entire series was solid, season 4 a little less but still great, and then a bunch of people from different dimensions just happily stroll through a tunnel into a room with a swastika the size of Texas hanging on the wall and pretend not to notice it. Was just silly. Season 4's first half was great. Once Smith took over America, it all went downhill. The Japanese retreat from America because a few buildings in San Francisco blew up. Then the resistance managed to blow up a monorail carrying some of the top officials of the Reich. Why the fuck was there no security? Smith then kills himself and the Reich has a coup or something. It was all so rushed. It wasn't a bad ending, but it was way too sudden. Karate Kid. It went like this. Okay, they're fighting. Bang, Daniel kicks the other fella in the nose. Everyone cheers and surrounds him. The old Japanese fella nods approvingly. And it's done. That's it. Credits. No resolution whatsoever. Edit, again. It is not a bad ending, but in my opinion, it was quite abrupt. But the ending of 1 goes right into the beginning of 2. It's almost like they were supposed to be one movie, but got chopped up. That's actually what happened. The opening of 2 was the original ending of 1, but they wanted to go out on a big note, so they dropped the epilogue and used it for the sequel. When I was little, my mother sent my brothers and I to a Disney movie. Safe choice, right? All 3 of us were bawling our eyes out when she picked us up after. The movie was Old Yeller. That was not a bad ending, just a sad one. Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. TBF, the whole movie was pretty bad. I saw this movie in the theater. I have almost no memory of it, and never think of it other than when I see it mentioned on Reddit, and then I think, oh yeah, that exists. When I saw it in theaters, it actually caught on fire halfway through. Should have taken it as a sign. Lucy. She turns herself into a pickle USB stick. Funniest shit I've ever seen. I took it that she ascended into a state of being that's pure energy, and she produced the USB stick for the rest of mankind. Yeah, this is basically it. She doesn't actually turn herself into a USB stick. But the posts that say she did always get more upvotes. Every fucking time. I am legend. The book ending was so much better. Spoilers below. The main character spends his days finding and spiking as many vampires as he can find. They cannot move during the day, so it's easy hunting for him. He's lonely, and eventually a girl comes along and she stays with him. Then the vampires catch him, but they don't eat him, they take him to their town. He overhears them talking about him and realizes that he was wrong. Not all vampires are mindless killing machines, but a large number of them can think and feel. He realizes that society has moved on. They have a town, rules, hopes, dreams and fears. He has become to them what he feared the most. He hunted them during the day when they were helpless and afraid. He was the story they talked about in whispers. He is a creature of the old world. He is legend. Damn, that is just so much cooler. There was an alt ending that kind of goes that way, where he realizes he is the bad guy. But they changed it to the crappy one. The alt ending at least makes the title of the movie make sense. I didn't expect much from The Rise of Skywalker, and it still disappointed me. Why was Palpatine surprised that Rey and Kylo were connected by the Force, if Snoke was his puppet and Snoke directly talked about their connection in Episode 8? How did a single hidden Sith planet have the resources and manpower to build a fleet that the First Order's own admirals, masters of an entire sector of the galaxy, admit dwarfs their own? If Force ghosts can now interact with the material world, e.g. Luke raising his swing from the ocean and Yoda blasting a tree with lightning, why the fuck didn't Luke, Yoda, and Obi-Wan just teleport over to Palpatine's house and fucking yeet him back into the afterlife? Or fuck, even Force Anakin could have done it, thus preserving the prophecy that the sequels just kind of forgot existed. How did Lando round up an entire fleet of random, ragtag ships in less than an hour? Remember that Lando and Poe left at the same time in different directions. Poe went straight to the Sith planet, and Lando would have followed the same path, so all of that travel time should be struck against each other. Lando showed up mid-battle, which means that he magically gathered that entire force in approximately 20 minutes. Further on the point of Lando's magic band of misfits, if the First Order had supreme military control of most of the galaxy, and the Sith fleet dwarfed their own, how did a bunch of random civilian pleasure and cargo ships defeat the Sith fleet? If they could do that, why couldn't they overthrow the First Order? Why did Palpatine route his entire fleet to a planet with only a single fragile control tower allowing travel into orbit? At least the Death Star's tiny weakness was explained as a deliberate sabotage by the designer. Why did Palpatine, the master of intrigue and shadowy plots behind the scenes, announce to the entire galaxy that he had returned and was going to crush them, before he had his armada ready to go in space? Who hid the map to the Sith planet in Palpatine's chambers on the Death Star? It clearly wasn't something he put there himself, because somebody built a magic dagger that acts as a map to find it on the Death Star. Somebody had to have known the map was there and deliberately craft the dagger to show others where it was. Somebody who could speak ancient Sith. No such person exists in canon that I'm aware of. Furthermore, why did somebody make a secret Sith dagger map, the only purpose of which was to lead to another map? What possible purpose could that have served to anybody in universe? How did Kylo return to the Sith planet after being stranded on the wreckage of the Death Star, full of nothing but old, broken TIE fighters that Episode 4 made clear couldn't go to light speed anyway? If force healing is such an easy thing to do, even to the extent of resurrecting the dead, why was Anakin Skywalker so desperate to find a cure for Padme that he would turn to the dark side? He lived at the height of the New Republic. Surely this technique that an untrained desert girl discovered on her own would have been known to the Jedi at the height of their power. And this isn't a plot hole per se, but why did Rey bury Luke's and Leia's sabers on fucking Tatooine? Luke hated Tatooine, his father hated Tatooine, his grandmother was enslaved on Tatooine, and Leia spent her time on the planet as an implied sex slave to a Hutt. The entire family line hated that desert shithole where they experienced so much misery. That's like taking your Jewish grandmother's old necklace and burying it in fucking Auschwitz. The movie and its ending weren't just bad, it's entirely incoherent from a plot perspective. I can suspend disbelief quite a bit when watching magic space wizards, but there's a certain point at which the fictional universe isn't even obeying its own laws and logic. You know, I don't understand why these writers and stuff don't secretly recruit a few diehard and knowledgeable fans to help with these plot holes. It wouldn't cost them much and you'd satisfy both the mainstream fans and the hardcore ones.